Just a part of the book. Sutter Kane.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
I like Stephen King, Sutter Kane. The winks that make me so happy.
So what I love too is, so I post on Facebook when I'm watching movies. I just post the movie poster. Everyone knows shamelessly whatever kind of crap I'm watching or high film I'm watching. And I have people commenting when I post it sometimes on different social media platforms who I know very well and who I do not think of as horror fans at all. And so some dude, a good friend of mine who is not into horror movies, who specifically dislikes horror movies, writes, "Do you read Sutter Kane?"
Hey.
As his comment. It's like, that is a known line. Like, people know that line. If you've seen that movie, that sticks with you.
And you know what's interesting? My wife, well, she likes horror, but she doesn't like all horror, but she loved this too. But I think that's because there's John Carpenter was talking about this, and he brought in cosmic horror into it. So, I mean, as much as we love The Thing, it's just an alien plops on Earth and is frozen, and then these Norwegians thaw it, and then it attacks Kurt Russell and Keith David. That's cool. But then you get Prince of Darkness, which, I mean, it has the anti-god and has this. It's more like science-y. Would you say the explanation of all this? I mean, magic and science combined. But this one's just straight up cosmic sci-fi novel, kind of high. Like, a lot of this film is built around the dialogue. The action scenes are few and far between. I mean, Sam Neill gets thrown through a door. He kicks a guy in the balls. But this is another sort of, it's kind of a trippy cosmic horror film that just has such a unique tone to it, and maybe it speaks to non-horror fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much embracing the Lovecraftian elements that, as you look deeper into the void, or as you see the indescribable color out of space, you are touched by the madness, and the madness grows. And at first, you don't understand how it's affecting you, and then eventually you are overtaken, and you are part of the entropy. And this movie does that very well with, I mean, we see it most linearly with Sam Neill's character, Trent, but we also see it with his travel companion. We kind of see, I guess, glimpses of it in the townspeople of Hobbs End. And before he even goes, the fans of Sutter Kane, simply those who have read the words of the void, if you will, in air quotes, not that this is said in the movie, they are drawn into madness. So we see in all directions and in different ways, we see this madness, this pervasive madness spreading. It's infectious. It's like The Thing on a sociological scale.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's... Yeah, just a worldwide catastrophe. Then they all move inland after eating everybody on the coast.
Right, in New England.
Yeah, I love that. But no,
we're starting with good beer and mass holes and higher education.
They take out the monsters take out the green monster.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love it too. And you know what's interesting for me is this. I don't think this movie ever tries to throw a curveball at you. It's quite clear when they're traveling, this town doesn't exist. And so they kind of get zapped into this town. They see the person on the bike. Then they get into the town. Well, this isn't how the book reads. Oh, don't step there. That's normally there. Then you see the monster. It spells everything out for you quite. It doesn't try to pull wool over your eyes, is what I'm saying. It's a good ride that just, I don't know. It's just, what am I saying, John? What's a better way to explain this? But
it forecasts all of its reveals.
And it says it in the beginning, too, right? What does she say? She says life is, oh gosh, I have it in my notes. I can't find it. I take notes like a madman. When she's like, what is existence? Like, it's what you make it, and it's when they're in the car, and they're sort of having this conversation about what's real. It's all foreshadowed in the movie.
Yeah, and again, they tell us a lot in the movie. You know, we know he ends up in the mental asylum.
Yep.
We know that already. And once he's put in there, he seems content to stay there.
Yeah.
So that's very telling. And when again, she mentions that the old lady who runs the inn, or Trent, Sam Neill brings it up that can't be the woman from the story. That's a sweet little old lady. She wouldn't harm anybody. In the book, she chops up her husband into little bits.
Mrs. Pickman.
Right, but then she does it, and so all the things, it forecasts itself well. There are no like holy crap moments. It's just like, oh, that sounds creepy. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and at the ending, you know what's interesting for me is when I finished the thing, I never sat there and thought, which one is it? Who did what? Because it was such a satisfying experience for me. I just said, this is great. I don't care. This is such a fulfilling thing. I didn't want to ruin it by overthinking it.
You know, back then, before social media, we hardly even had the inkling to have discussions of, well, which one do you think the writers and director had to be the thing? Is it either of them? Is it none of them? Instead, you finish the movie thinking, oh, dude, and you don't even know which one might be the thing. You're content to be wowed by that. Like, I wonder if one of them is the thing.
Yeah.
We'll never know. Whereas now everyone's going online like, I think that they meant this. No, I'm pretty sure this was implied and everyone has to have the answer. And it's fun to get the answer. But back then there was, you know, when you watch this movie, well, I didn't watch it in 82 because, you know, I was 1, but I probably saw this movie for the first time when I was 11. And it was a little much for me. At the time, it's so much more mystique.
Yeah.
About movies, without all these trailers with spoilers already built into them, without reviews all over the place, canvassed everywhere. Mm-hmm. I miss that mystique, but I love where we are now.
No, for sure. I mean, we're just moving forward. It has to happen with how connected we are. But I guess for me, with the thing, I just went, I love it. I don't care. Prince of Darkness, I could care less if that guy was dreaming at the end. I just like the movie. This one, I feel like I understand exactly. John Trent knows what happened. He's a part of the book. He has no control. He's learning the story. And that's it. Like, there's articles out there where I was reading this article, The Ending Explained, and someone wrote...
Are you going to upset me right now?
What? No, they're like, they're asking a lot of questions. Oh, at the end of In the Mouth of Madness, we're left with a series of existential questions. The first being whether it's even possible to discuss the film's ending without sounding totally high. No, because I get the joke, but this is just a guy who was written by Sutter Kane, came into creation, brought the book back, the world ended, and then he realized it when watching the movie.
I mean, really, Stranger Than Fiction starring Will Ferrell is just a more grounded retelling of In the Mouth of Madness.
But yeah, and then they put, to put it mildly, what is and isn't real is left ambiguous. I don't know. And are the final moments in Trent's mind snapping after encounter with brain-breaking eldritch monstrosities? Or is it Trent really just a cog in Kane's fictional universe? They're like, or if so, was he always a fictional character, or was he a real person absorbed by Kane's imagination? And then it's like, is the movie Trent watches a film within the film, or is Carpenter's film itself the film within the film? Was anything that we watched real? But I don't know. I never asked one of those questions because I felt like I understood it.
Agreed. I think that this is an incredibly interesting movie, but it's almost like, I feel like positing those questions is trying to make the movie sound even more interesting than it is to someone who hasn't seen it, who would then find out, no, the movie's already that interesting. Why are you asking these questions?
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it explains this. I think that you either say all of this is a nonsense fever dream, right, of fantasy, or it's exactly as we see it transpire. But to say that it's all a nonsense fever dream of fantasy, or, you know, a madness fever dream, is kind of like just the one direction or the other of, are they still in a dream in the end of Inception?
Yeah.
It's inconsequential, in other words. It doesn't matter. This review posits it as if it matters or if there are things to figure out. I would argue, as I think we've already established, there isn't really anything to figure out. This is handed to us. Maybe this reviewer watched this more casually. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're paid to do reviews and they did 3 reviews and watched 3 movies that day and they were getting a little movie fatigue. I don't know. I'm not trying to make fun of this person, by the way.
The writing's good. I mean, I love the idea of how do you explain this movie without seeing high. The prose is good.
Right.
I guess for me, I'm just wondering aloud if I'm different than most people because I just never had those questions because it always seemed obvious to me. And that's fine. Maybe I'm different, but that's
you
just...
You asked that question after you watched Mandy.
Yeah.
When you watch Mandy and you're reviewing it, you can say, how do you explain the third act of Mandy without sounding high? And that makes sense to say.
Yeah.
There are certain movies for which that makes sense to say.
So this roaming group of Partridge Family cultists and some Cenobites torture and murder Nicolas Cage's...
Some clearly fantastical Cenobites.
Yeah, murder Nicolas Cage's girlfriend. He's left to live, then he goes on a massive bathroom scream, gets a bow and arrow from the guy from Commando, a crossbow, goes to the Cenobites' home.
Forges a heavy metal axe.
Yes! Goes to a meth dealer who has a tiger, then goes to then hunts down the Cenobites and has an epic brawl with them outside of a flaming car, snorts 12 ounces of cocaine, goes to a massive pyramid, has a chainsaw fight, and then kills Partridge leader. You're high.
Well, just this, when he fights the Cenobite in the apartment.
Yeah.
It's that first one wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
See, that to me alone is the most, like, otherworldly part of the whole movie for me. That and him forging this weapon.
Yeah. And those, because they took damage that humans can't take.
Right. Now, I mean, they were clearly, like, fueled by demons.
Even if their bodies are so loaded up on a bad drug, something into their skull and brain would kill them. So there's some form of Cenobite magic.
Or at least severely inhibit motor function.
Yeah, exactly. What a beautiful film. That's an art film right there. Man. I would watch In the Mouth of Madness for Mandy too, because Mandy takes you places. Mandy
is it takes a bit of a toll on you, even though it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a physically draining movie, and I adore it. In the Mouth of Madness never physically drains you, though. It's a fun ride. It's a very fun ride. I never felt drained.
I think that the combination of Trent's skepticism,
his sassiness,
his aggressive, or assertive, occasionally even like it's almost laughable. It's like, how can you believe this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is reality. He opens the window. See, there should be a church there, a Byzantine church with 250-foot spires. And then she says, no, that's this window. Like, it's almost, it's meant to draw a couple grins.
Yeah.
As things are revealed, in addition to being shocking at times.
I love how she makes the trip, John. Sorry to interrupt. She makes the trip, and then he wakes up. He's like, oh, you drove all night. This is great. Oh, thanks for getting us here.
You found it. She's like, no, you don't understand. I don't know how I found it. He's like, no, that's great. You found it. It's
he's such a schmuck.
So it's a cross between that skepticism and not the laughs, but the grins that we get from that skepticism and what I will call the high diversity and frequency of different kinds of effects and horror concepts and creatures and supernatural enchantments or whatever, right? We see all these different things going on. So it's very entertaining. It's not like a zombie movie where, this is exciting because this time the zombies came out of this sewage and they're wet, bloated zombies.
Poop
and these
zombies.
other zombies, right? These other zombies are, we're all dried up and they're more skeletal. And it's just a different, in this, it's like, no, there's zombies and then there's vampires and there's Frankenstein and there's, it's like it's jumping all over the place. This is probably why kids thought Monster Squad was a blast back in the day and why I still think that no matter how much a lot of people hate it, Van Helsing is a blast in 2004 because we get all the monsters.
Yeah.
So we get this diversity of creatures and they're even presented in different ways. And he's literally someone is peeling reality like a page of paper before we see the hallway wall of monsters. We see an old lady with tentacle breasts hatcheting her husband. We see all these crazy things. Oh God, and when she does her exorcist walk with her twisted head.
Yeah.
Like there are all these cool gags going on. The little kid made me think of Cronenberg's The Brood.
The Brood.
Made the little blonde girl look monstrous. There's so many great, and even just the scene